Hello, everyone. Another week of the Transform Your Birth podcast. And with me today, I love this because I've got three people on the podcast: Molly and her lovely partner, Sam, and little Nell, who's only 3 weeks old. She's got a head full of beautiful dark hair and she's very settled right now. So we'll kick off while the going's good. Welcome, you two. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
us.
Now, I always like to explore how you were feeling prior to giving birth and what were the sort of challenges that you were experiencing in terms of fears, concerns, anything like that. And then we'll go into how you prepared. So, how were you feeling? Let's start with you, Molly, about the idea of giving birth.
I think really early on in the pregnancy, I was feeling a little nervous just because of the unknownness of it all. But I had been listening to your podcast a lot and listening to other people's sort of more positive birth stories. So I had sort of a feeling that it would be fine, I guess. Like I was nervous, but I had this kind of baseline feeling that it would all kind of be okay, and nothing too terrible would happen, which was I think carried me through. I think it was a really good kind of feeling to have, and Sam was really like positive and supportive the whole time as well, and just kind of had the belief that it would be fine. So I think that
Good.
influenced me.
How were you feeling, Sam, about the idea of becoming a dad? And
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've been excited for a long time. We were quite overdue in the lead up to the birth, though, and that we were starting to get, a little bit worried about an induction and then whether that would interfere with the process we had in mind for birth. So that was a little
That was challenging.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what were we, 10 days overdue or something?
Yeah, 10 days overdue when she decided to come. So yeah, it was getting to a point where I was like, oh, if we have to get induced, then, I know about the sort of cascade of interventions that might happen after that. So I was a little nervous, but luckily she just decided to come.
it's quite normal as people get closer to giving birth, where they can get a little bit wobbly. And this
Mm,
is what I talk about in my catch-ups with my pregnant families of, I call it birth readiness. And it's that sort of, you can do all the preparation and do the practices and then, be feeling really calm and confident. And then as you get closer, it's a little bit like, oh, yes, let's go on that roller coaster. And as you're lining up and you're getting closer to actually getting on it, you start to get wobbly. And that's certainly what can happen with birth as well, because there's a part of you that knows you're about to walk into the mystery and that you can't control this process and you don't know what's ahead. And when you, particularly if, induction is looming, you start to realize, well, hang on, this could put us on a totally different road. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I think by the end of it, I'd accepted that I was never going to give birth, and I was going to be pregnant forever.
Oh, you poor
And
darling.
then she decided to come. And I think actually early in labor, I completely gaslit myself and was in complete denial that it was even happening.
Oh, isn't that
Yeah.
fun? Gosh.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your preparation then. Tell us about your preparation.
Yeah, so I guess like I, read up on a lot of books, but one of the main things we did was your course and the daily meditations, which I'm not generally someone that would stick to something every day, particularly when it's like taking time out of life to just chill.
Yeah.
But I actually did, which is really was really great for me, I think, in the end. But yeah, I did them every day. Sam did a few with me as well, and I think that was the single best thing that I did.
That's interesting. I'm really wanting to join the dots as to how that translated on the day. So we will go there. What sort of changes did you feel you needed to make when you went through the process of doing the course, Molly? Like,
I think letting go was
yeah.
the big one for me. So I think I'm definitely someone that likes to know what's happening and be in control of things. And I think something I learned through the meditations as well, but also the course, that like, yeah, you can't really control what happens and you actually just have to submit to the physiological process that's happening. Yeah. So I think that was the biggest thing for me.
And what about you, Sam? You did the course as well. You described yourself as a bit of a skeptic. Tell me more about that.
I think I mean, I guess as a partner, and I'd do a bit of mindfulness, and I'd sort of tried to get Molly into it a couple of times, and she was sort of like, I mean, not disinterested, but like it didn't really happen. And I guess the course with a lot of the meditations and stuff, I guess I was a bit sort of, I just was not sure whether it was going to work, like, yeah, but I mean, she really committed to the daily practices. And I guess part in the back of my mind as well, when you talk about the subconscious taking over,
Yeah.
I was sort of like, obviously I wanted to believe it, but in part of my mind, I was like, well, when those contractions start, like I just sort of had doubts that, once the pain starts, and I know we shouldn't, like that's something I also learned through the course, not necessarily to refer to it so much as pain, but once they start, that stuff would just potentially fall away and it wouldn't be strong enough to get you through it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to say I was very wrong.
Wow, we'll go into that. But I just want to touch on that point because I think the idea that people might have listening, that meditation or, dealing with something like the pain of childbirth, surely something like meditation couldn't really make much of a difference. And you know what? There are some labours and some birthing experiences where you might be in a situation where it can be so, so intense that nothing you do seems to work and you've just got to hold on. I actually think it's important to acknowledge that birth can take us on a ride. All sorts of things can trigger our responses in our body, and conditions that we might find ourselves in can trigger a response in our body that, once again, is part of the intelligence of the system. We cannot control this.
Yeah.
And that's Mother Nature humbling you. She's preparing you to get on your knees, realize that you're not the one running the world. and and now that you've got this baby is going to demand from you that you let go of that sense of being able to train or control or make your baby sleep when they don't want to sleep. All of that starts to become really aware, like become really obvious. And so the process of meditation is really there to help us get our subconscious on board and focused in a way that's going to work with the birth, not against it. So that regardless of what happens, you see the innate value of what it is that you're doing, so that if birth does get a little bit intense and overwhelming, that you still have a sense that you can get through it as a result of doing the meditations. And they also downregulate stress, which what that actually means is you're less likely to be triggered. Your capacity to deal with what's there increases as a result of doing practices like this. So there's a lot of different reasons why these powerful, powerful practices can really help change a labour. But I love that Sam said, I didn't think it'd make much difference once that pain starts, but it can absolutely transform the pain, transform your perception of the pain, and transform how you experience it. And sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Totally.
Or there's a period in your labour where it's like, okay, that was working for a while there, but now this is taking me into a different realm of experience. All experiences are valid because it's all part of the preparation for you becoming a parent. So I love that we've sort of hit on that wisdom. So how about Molly, you tell us how things actually, no, did we finish with you, Sam, about the course as well? What sort of changes did you notice in the way that you've felt you were able to support Molly?
Well, I think the main thing that like stuck with me was how like important it is that fear and stress and anxiety during the birth has like an actual physiological effect on the process. So like, I guess I was really, I guess to just really commit to having a great environment at home when things kick off, and I don't know, just do your best to facilitate that vibe as much as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up like I had very little opportunity to do that. But I think the medicalization of birth and all that sort of stuff that you talk about, it was just it was interesting, and I think it did influence the way we sort of went into the whole process.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, Molly, do you want to start with what unfolded?
Yeah, sure. I was cleaning the windows of the house.
As you do. She's
Yep.
gone into nesting. Okay.
Scrubbing the windows. We'd got a pressure washer out, and we were trying to pressure wash the front veranda. And then I had what I thought was my waters breaking, but it had a look, and it was quite bloody. So I called the midwife and was like, "Oh, there's a fair bit of blood. I think maybe it was my waters, but I'm not sure." So I had to go in and get checked. While I was in there, they popped a CTG monitor on and to listen to the baby, but also, it tracked all what the midwife was calling Braxton Hicks contractions, which
you've been having for days as well.
I had been having for about a week, but they were a little more intense, and I think they were not Braxton Hicks contractions. But anyway, it turned out that it was just like a bloody show, not my waters. So we went home.
She sent us home. She's like, "Go home, cook dinner, try and go to bed."
Yeah, and she was like, "You might go into labor tonight, but yeah, just take it easy." And in the car ride on the way home, I just kind of lost it and was like, if this isn't labor, I cannot get through this. Like, it was the contractions had ramped up, and they were pretty intense. And I was like, I can't believe this isn't labor, but they were quite close together.
Yeah.
And so I was like kind of not believing that they were contractions, because by the time we started timing them once we got home, which was only about 10 minutes later, they were about a minute apart.
Wow.
And lasting anywhere between like 30 and 60 seconds. So it was very intense. And I was pretty disturbed at the time, because I just didn't quite understand what was happening.
Can I come in there? I think it's really interesting. With first-time mothers, one of the things that can happen that midwives try to dissuade first-time mothers from doing is coming in too early. And so they tend to play down things and set you up with an idea that this is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Now, when it's the first time that your body's ever done something, then it, particularly like thinning out a cervix, it can take a long time. And that's quite true for a lot of women, but not all women. Some women dilate very, very quickly. But what can happen with that messaging, even the idea of, oh, these are just Braxton Hicks. Well, here's what Braxton Hicks are. They're contractions. They're mini contractions, but it's your uterus contracting. And so Braxton Hicks, some women feel them, some women don't, but they can happen for weeks and even months leading up to the actual birth. And it's when your tummy gets really tight, and then a couple of minutes later it's soft again. And that's the uterus contracting and getting ready to be able to push. It's a big, powerful muscle that needs to push this baby out. So even the idea of, you having Braxton Hicks is a tad bit offensive, because it's like, hang on, it is actual labor. And every contraction is ultimately contributing to the final outcome, even those so-called Braxton Hicks prior to labor officially starting, or where we start to consider that labor's starting. And that messaging there was, from what I sense, what you're describing there was enough to make you confused about what's actually happening. Does that feel accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was also, I think, gaslighting myself a bit because every time she'd come into the room and I had the monitor on, I'd kind of play down how I was feeling. Like, I'd pretend it wasn't as bad as it was. I don't know why. I guess I just was still in denial, because I guess every day I'd been getting these Braxton, or contractions kind of daily,
Yeah.
and then kind of go away and come back, and I just kind of thought it was the
Yeah.
same thing. So yeah, I think I did downplay it as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you went home and they were about a minute apart.
A minute apart, yeah, and they were pretty intense. And Sam was trying to cook dinner, like the midwife said. And every time he'd leave the room, I'd kind of yell at him to come back. It's
Come
like,
back
don't
in.
leave me alone.
Like, what's going on?
But yeah, there was one point where I was still bleeding quite a lot, and I was kind of confused about that as well. That was another thing that I hadn't really expected. So I was like, nope, you've got to call the midwife. Like, something's weird. Like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I think that was like the best call we could have made, because she actually came to our house, which was wonderful, because we're in a continuity program.
Can I just add the bit that, like, how you were, it was being unsure about what was going on, but we had your birth practice, but what is it? The birth,
the labor dance.
Labor dance.
So we had that running it, and obviously, so I'm sort of sitting on the side when I realized to bail on dinner, and sit with Marlon. I was like encouraging her to sort of try to go with the meditation and get into it. And it was so interesting watching how every now and then, maybe 1 in 4 or 5 contractions, because they were coming so thick and fast, she'd be absolutely like gone and just breathe straight through it. Just like looked like she was barely feeling it. And then she'd snap out of it again and be like, well, but they're only a minute apart, and like, ow, like, and she'd sort of really struggle with the pain.
Yeah.
And it was just like really clear that she wasn't comfortable enough to like let go, because we still weren't sure of like what was actually happening.
It was getting in the way, the confusion.
It really
and
was.
Not knowing if that was normal and why. And this is the thing, we think, oh, they start a few, half an hour apart, and then they build up to 10 minutes and 5 minutes, and we expect a certain predictability to it, but it isn't always the case.
No.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like, because I didn't know what was going on either, so I was sort of still a bit like,
we were both a bit unsure and a bit nervous about what was happening.
So what happened when the midwife came?
Well, initially we'd said we didn't want any examinations for the labor, but as soon as she came, I was like, please have a look. Tell me what's happening. I need to know what this is. And she checked me, and I was 6 centimeters. So she was like, okay, we can go to hospital now. And that just fully flipped a switch in my brain, which was amazing.
Yeah.
It was actually the best thing she could have done at that point, which is interesting to me, because it's not at all what I thought I wanted. But yeah, it really helped flip that switch.
Oh, well, that was like you were just like handed over the keys. It was like that's when the subconscious was able to just take the wheel, and it was sort of like, see you later.
Yeah, it was like my brain told my body that I didn't have, or my body told my brain I didn't have to worry anymore. So I just kind of,
you could let go.
Yeah.
Even
knowing that you were actually in labor and what you were experiencing was real, and not just Braxton Hicks. Yeah.
Or something wasn't wrong, or I don't know. Yeah, it was really good. And then the car ride to the hospital was just, I mean, everyone said that's the worst thing, but actually the car ride home from the first time we went to hospital was the worst thing. And the car ride to the hospital when I was in labor was actually all right, because I wasn't even,
you had a contraction. I think you had 2 contractions on the walk from the front of the hospital to the birth center, and you were just like super chill.
What do you think made the car trip okay for you, Molly?
Honestly, we had your labor dance on the entire labor. And I don't know if it was just the amount of times I'd listened to it before, and like the music and whatever had just like clicked me in to a different gear, but I was just able to stay calm and kind of, it's almost like I disassociated from my body pretty quickly, and I just wasn't really attached to the sensations.
You were altered. You were in an altered state. And that is the power of the practices of, and of course it's going to affect all women differently, but it's obvious Sam could see that when you were able to finally let go and accept that this is normal and it's progressing, and 6 centimeters is a great number to hear, that there was something very altered about you. How were you experiencing the sensations once you were able to let go?
Just like kind of waves of intensity. It wasn't like, I don't know if because I was in an altered state and I can't remember, but honestly, it doesn't feel, they didn't really feel painful, just more intense. It was
Yeah.
just a very intense wave that I, would have to stop for and couldn't obviously talk through or anything. But yeah, it wasn't that sharp pain that I was feeling prior. Figuring out what was happening.
Yeah, you said the most painful part of the whole process was those, like the car ride home from the birth center.
The first time.
Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah.
Because you weren't quite surrendered or in the zone at that point.
Yeah, and I think I was a bit fearful or anxious about what was happening, and I think that must have contributed to, more pain. Yeah.
I had this demonstrated to me in a birth I was at once with a mother when I came in, and she had a mother-in-law there and a husband, and they were all chatty, and she was sort of, in a sort of social state, and then she'll have a contraction, then she'd come in and she'd be chatting. And when I came in, I was just aware that the vibe wasn't right for her, and I started to put her into a deep relaxation. And then while she was in it, she opened her eyes and she went, "Oh, these contractions feel different." And I said, "That's because you surrendered now, darling. You've gone deeper into the zone." And she went, "Oh." And it was so beautiful for me to see her go from being more in the world and having contractions to more surrendered and having contractions that can actually change the way you experience them.
Yeah, it definitely did for me.
Interesting. So then what started to happen?
Well, we got to the birth center and the midwife had filled up or was filling up the bath.
Ran the bath.
And I hopped in and
student midwife arrived as well.
Yeah, student midwife arrived. She just got back from a 4-day camping weekend with her friends and hadn't slept very well. And anyway, she was wonderful.
Literally on the road back when Mel messaged her, "How far off are you?"
So I got in the bath, and actually something that was amazing that my midwife got me was a bunch of ice, which was not in my labor toolkit or anything that I'd ever thought about, but it was just amazing. The hot bath with the cold ice just was really nice. And
were you sucking on it?
I was, sucking on it and kind of
chewing it. I was rubbing it all over your face, rubbing it on your arms. We had wet washers, and we rotate them, had a couple of washers. Yeah. And the midwives just I think because we had your podcast going, and it was obviously Molly was just in another place, and it was very zen, and they just kind of sat in the other room. They'd come in every now and then, waited. It was just sort of a very
they'd come in whenever they had to check the baby with the little Doppler, and but otherwise they really sat back and just let us go, which was great. And I don't know how long I was in there. I think it was a while because we had to refill the bath, so I had to get out and have a shower while they were refilling the bath.
It's about 3 hours.
Yeah, from start to finish in the hospital.
No, a little bit longer, wasn't it?
I think the entire labor was 5.5 hours. So I think
that's very fast for a first-time labor.
Yeah, it was quick. I think pretty soon after we arrived, I started getting pushing happening in my body, which was a bit of a shock at the time because it was very unprompted by me. It was just sort of happening.
I remember the first one. That's when you sort of came out. You're like, "Ow!" And then and I see your eyes come back, sort of, and look at me, "Ow!" And then she just sort of goes,
back in the zone.
Back into the zone. Yeah, and I came out of the zone a few times during that kind of early pushing phase to be like, "Oh, I'm a bit nervous about pushing. I'm not sure about this sensation because it was so different to the before." But
midwife was just like, "Go with it. Just listen to your body. Just let your body do it." And she just drifted back off again.
And then Nell's hair arrived first in the bath. Was kind of waving out, and everyone was looking at it. And then it was sort of, I think, 35 or so minutes of pushing. the one thing with pushing that was a little nerve-wracking was I was really just pushing with my body with each contraction. I wasn't actually really pushing at all. It was just my body was doing it. And her head came out, which was great, but then her head sat out in the water for about 5 minutes, and I wasn't getting any more contractions at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, I think they have a time limit of about 7 minutes that the head can be under without the rest of them coming out. So I had to kind of push her without any contractions, the rest of her out, which I did a bit too fiercely,
a little bit too much gusto.
And she shot out to the other end of the bath, and the student midwife had to catch her. But
like a torpedo.
It was a bit torpedo. And sadly, in the process of that, her placenta cord snapped as she popped out, which was a little intense. The bath kind of filled up with blood, and I mean, I was honestly pretty chill about it, but you could tell the midwives were a bit like, okay, where's the cord? We've got to clamp the cord. But that happened, which was all right. And then we hopped out of the bath and got into the bed, and annoyingly Nell had swallowed a bit of meconium and wasn't breathing properly, so we had to send her to the special care nursery with Sam, which we'd kind of prepared for, just in the way we prepared for birth, and we had a plan for what would happen if one of us had to go. If she had to go to special care, if I had to go get something done.
I think that's even in one of the practices, one of the birth practices or something. I felt like it just, I'd almost done it before or something. Like it just was sort of something that could have been kind of traumatic or stressful or something. It was just like, really just like, okay, I'll go with her.
Mental rehearsal. When you feel mentally you've rehearsed something, then you're able to adapt and adjust much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was okay, and I was feeling okay about that. And then they checked, I birthed the placenta, but that was a managed birth of the placenta just because of the cord snapping. But that came pretty quickly, really, and then they checked me for tears and found that I'd had a 3B tear, so pretty significant tear, which I actually felt happened during the birth, but it wasn't painful. It was just felt like kind of Velcro or a zipper or something. I think just because everything was so stretched, it was kind of numb.
It's interesting you say that, and I do reinforce this a lot, because the idea of tearing for a lot of women just messes with their mind. And I like to reassure people that at the time, one, it's the last thing you're thinking about because there's such bigger things going on. And secondly, you rarely feel it. But if you do feel it, like you're describing, it's just part of an already stretching feeling.
Yeah.
Women often don't even detect, and you didn't even realize initially that you had, but you could reflect on when it actually happened.
Yeah.
And
so it wasn't painful, actually.
Yeah. And so were you able to adjust when you found out that you were going to need some help to repair? Were you able to do that?
Yeah, I was actually okay as well. I think it was something I hadn't prepared for, that scale of tear. I kind of assumed most women have, second degree would be where you go. But anyway, I wasn't too concerned. I think I was pretty high on all the birth hormones, so I was feeling really positive, and Sam was texting me updates from the nursery. I was sort of like, okay, this is just what we have to do. I have to go down into surgery and get stitched up. Unfortunately, I had to go under general anesthetic, which I think if I had my time again, I would decide not to do that. But I was kind of like, well, it'll get me to my baby quicker in my mind. So let's just get it done.
Yeah. Here's the thing about degree of tearing, I think part of the problem is that we actually label tearing first, second, third degree, that, and the implication is that the bigger the tear, the worse it is. And on some level that can be true because, it can go into different areas of your body. But on the other, it's like a cut on your arm. There's not a great deal of difference between a 1 centimetre cut and a 3 or 4 centimetre cut. It's still a cut. It's still got a repair, and suturing will help it to do that in a better way.
Mm.
I often tell the story that my first midwife never told me what degree tear I had.
Mm.
She drew a picture of it and told me how she'd repaired it. And I thought that was just brilliant. So I never got too caught up in whatever degree tear that it was, but I kind of realized in hindsight it was quite a significant one.
Mm.
So I think it probably was a big one, but to this day I still don't know. And I think what we do with our mind is we tend to assess the severity of a situation with things like labels like
Yeah.
degree, 2 degree, 3 degree, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, tends to imply that things are, worse. And that's not using the mind wisely.
No, well, I've definitely noticed that when I've told people that their reactions are pretty intense, but
Yeah.
actually for me, like, it wasn't that intense. I didn't experience that much pain, and recovery has been completely fine. So it's really, I mean, to me, not really a big deal.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. Now, talking about that period of time once little Nell landed, experienced a period of separation, and then you needed to go and get a general. That's quite a lot to deal with, Molly. Do you want to tell us more about how you've been able to, like, what that was like for you, sort of emotionally, and then what sort of resourcing you did in dealing with that?
Yeah. I think I was a little detached from, like, how intense it was. Like, I think at the time, when I got back from the general, I was pretty out of it. And the midwife and Sam brought her in from the special care nursery so I could feed her and have some skin to skin with her. But I was still pretty, like, I don't know if the drugs were affecting me or something, but I was a little out of it. So I didn't really get that super special time in my mind.
It happened. You didn't seem out of it. Like, you seemed completely fine. But
Isn't that interesting?
down the track, didn't
I think
really remember
I've
it.
kind of forgotten it or something. So I feel like I lost something, but I actually didn't. and since we got home and since the birth, we've just had so much skin to skin and so much just time together to kind of, I guess, heal that time that we were apart. But one thing that made me feel a lot better about it was Sam had heaps of skin to skin with her in the nursery, and she even latched onto his nipple.
She self-attached.
She self-attached.
2 hours, she found it, and God, gave it a red hot go.
Did you start lactating, Sam?
She still gets a bit confused,
Yeah.
Isn't that funny how you're totally fine with Sam? If anybody else had been holding that baby, that would be a real problem. But for some reason, Sam must be special. I don't know. He gets a jail free card. Because coming between a new mother and a baby is a very serious thing to do. But partners having that time, I think that framing really helps mothers to accept that separation. Because I've spoken to thousands of women about their birth, and often, women can have really complex birth, but the parts that get stuck in their throat when they share their story is often separation. That's a really hard thing to deal with. But I love, Molly, how you've made the point that since coming home, we've had lots of really special times. And I like to point out to people that bonding and connection after a birth is not a window of opportunity. And if it closes, well, you've missed out. Bonding is a lifelong process. It's not just a window of opportunity. And what gets lost in that space gets made up for further down the track. And women intuitively, they become even more fierce if they've had separation, and they don't want to put the baby down, and they growl at people who give them advice about, you should put the baby down. They want to eat their heads. So they often intuitively become a little bit more fiercer and connected to the baby because of that. So what gets lost gets made up for further down the track.
Yeah, I have noticed that a lot of people are offering to come over and why don't I hold the baby while you have a nap or take a shower? And I'm like, I don't I want to keep holding it.
Yeah, you're not
I don't really want
that yet.
I
There'll
think
come a
We're
time.
kind of fighting at home.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a special time, and you're only 3 weeks in, and that's beautiful. And there, there does come a time. It's usually after about 6 months, though, that women are very happy to hand them over. It's like they come in and here, hold the baby. But in those early days and weeks and even months, that's a very typical response to have, and that's part of how that baby is going to survive, by having parents who are very dedicated to that baby. So, Molly, what have you learned about yourself as a result of this experience?
I think honestly, I think I've just learned that the brain and body is just like incredible, and not what, I've I guess I've expanded my view of myself, and I'm capable of doing things and, letting go of sensations like more than I'd ever kind of thought I would be able to do. I'm very, very much in my head as a person, and I just had no idea I was capable of doing that. So it's definitely given me some, I guess, confidence in my ability to kind of get through things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that's helped with parenting?
I think so. Yeah, we've had a bit of a tough time with feeding and things, but we're getting there. And I think, yeah, I just sort of
Almost got too tough. Like your ability to push through painful experiences.
With poor attachment and
Yeah, at the beginning we had a tough tie, and Ma was just an absolute trooper through probably too much. Yeah, but we got that sorted, and it's been pretty good since then.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
She's a great baby. I love her. So it's good.
I remember with my first son, when I had breastfeeding problems, thinking, God, if I can bloody birth this baby, I can feed it as well. It gave me the grunt to get through those really tricky parts that we can experience with a newborn. So it certainly can help us set up. Sam, what have you learned about yourself? Apart from the fact that you're a legend.
I mean, I sort of still don't really think of it as much about myself for the whole thing. I think I was just so blown away by Molly and how incredible she was through the whole process. And I think, I think I sort of the whole course and the effect it had on the process. I think generally I'm maybe more of a medical person, and I'd probably just do whatever the doctor suggests. And I think that's why I was keen to do the podcast, and why I'm just telling everyone that I see. It's just that kind of makes me a bit sad that the general approach to birth is sort of quite different to the one that we experienced. And even just the birth center, not many people even get into the birth center. And it just feels like there is a whole other world of, and obviously it's not going to be the same for everyone, and it can be extremely different, but there's a different way to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel humbled by what you're saying there, because, and this is part of why this podcast is so important, and the work that I do in my classes and other wonderful childbirth educators do, who understand the role of the mind in birth and help prepare couples in a way that it's not just about the information, but in a way that can help them to really learn to work with the process and see the benefit of the process and the power of, stepping up and taking responsibility, pushing back on some of the medical procedures, because you have a greater sense of what needs to happen and you start to trust yourself. That whole journey of learning and upgrading your system really does change outcomes quite significantly. Yeah. So thank you, Sam. And I love how you said, I marveled at Molly and how amazing Molly was. And for dads and other other parents listening to this podcast, your role very much is to hold space for this magical thing to happen, from a woman being pregnant to birthing her baby and then parenting, dealing with breastfeeding issues, to hold space and to be the supporter of that, and that it isn't about you anymore. It's about your family. We go from being me orientation prior to having our children to we. And your role, Sam, you carried out beautifully, and how you were able to really marvel at what Molly's done and appreciate that is such a gift for you and your family and for Molly.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
Molly, what advice would you give to people preparing for birth?
Probably the same advice that you've been giving, is do the practices.
That's not what I say, though, is it? What do I say?
No, do the effing practices. Yeah, and maybe just like trusting yourself and trusting your body. Like, it's crazy how that trust carried me through. I think that was something that was really, and obviously you never know what's going to happen, and things, birth is weird and complicated and different every time, I think. But yeah, just trusting yourself, and I think also the people around you as well. Like, I had really strong trust in the midwives, and that I think that just really helped me stay calm when things went a little pear-shaped at the end. So yeah, and obviously trusting your partner. I had immense trust in Sam, as always. Yeah,
what a great way to start your family life together. Well, we've had an absolute treat with this beautiful family, with Molly, Sam and Nell today. There's been a lot of wonderful insights that we've had into dealing with things from a preparation perspective, what we can do to really make the difference, and the power of the practices, to recognizing that even with first-time mothers, anything is possible, that it's not always predictable, it's not always long, it can be short, it can be fierce. Contractions will do what they need to do, ultimately, which is to get the baby here, but they can take many forms and lengths and time between and all of that, to sometimes having to adjust to situations where, Nell needed a bit of extra help, a little bit of separation there, and getting some help for your recovery as well, Molly. All these things are possibilities that can unfold. But when you start to learn about what you can do to have a sense of agency around this mystery, to have a sense of being able to contribute to the situation, and also to be able to anchor yourself to your capacity to stay calm and relaxed, going into the zone, going into labor land, and really recognizing the power of that. And having a partner like Sam, as well as incredible health professionals to hold space for that to happen, then you're really on the right track. So there's some great wisdom shared today. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and tune in again. We'll have some more goodness for you. Bye for now.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.